podcast, Tech Products That Work.
Other scenarios that we've also gotten ourselves into a lot is where people have taken like a whole lot of different applications that together make the process work for them and their company, and then have finally gotten to a point where they decided, okay, we're tired of bootstrapping everything together with these 5, 6, 7 applications to fulfill the process and all the shortcomings in between, and manual intervention for the one to this data and this process to now, because it ends here in this app, and then to make it go into the next app and then work from there is a manual process. They get tired of all of that. They say, okay, the time is now for us to invest in developing our own thing, which then becomes this piece of software that has to do what all these 5, 6, or 7 applications currently do for us, including the steps in between where there's manual intervention. Because obviously, it goes without saying that all of them are going to be in one system, but sometimes there are like human systems implemented in between that you don't quite think of. So even though you've got 5 apps, you've almost actually got 10 or 9, because in between there's little human systems as well that you created and cultivated for the entire ecosystem to work. So there are a few projects that we had actually gotten involved in where we ended up building a complete system that does what a couple of systems did for these guys previously.
Sure. I love the conversation of how there's potentially these steps in between that we kind of subconsciously don't consider as part of this automated process because we've just become so used to doing it. But actually, in a full bespoke solution, you would want that automated and in the process. That's very cool.
Kind of what people are now trying to get AI to do for them is fill in all those little gaps and things to automate 100%. The process entirely. But then your only problem is the faith that you have to put into that AI agent. How are you going to measure this metric that we call hallucination? So how do you ever actually know if your system is outputting credible data, for example, if you've got this agent in between? I'm not saying that it can't be done. It most certainly can be done, but you've got to treat that a little bit differently to a system that was built specifically for certain processes. Because now suddenly it's like throwing this wild card in between, because this thing can do kind of anything. So you got to be very careful. It's not as easy as people think it is.
It's a really intelligent toddler.
Yeah, that's quite a clever way of putting it.
Anyway, we've got a really great question here. A lot of current industry commentary frames 2026 as the year of hybrid approaches and then becoming sort of the default, where people are buying commodity tools but building the differentiating layer on top. Does this match what you're seeing with EpicDev's clients?
Everyone is sort of catering to that as a solution, because if you wanted to build a system that was going to take care of everything for you in your organization, I think that's definitely wishful thinking, which is why you see your cloud solutions like your Google Cloud Platform, GCP, or Azure, the Microsoft one, or your AWS. All of these solutions, basically what they're trying to do is just create this ecosystem where the data lives. And then you can basically take that data and pass it between from application to application. Each one, so the way they explain it is it's one big horizontal onto which you build your verticals. If you think about it, that's actually quite a clever analogy, because they're all plugged into the horizontal. So that's where those little manual interventions that I spoke of earlier then doesn't become a problem anymore, because this vertical can be taught to speak to this vertical and then that vertical. And what this guy over here does is he, for example, mines the data and brings it into the system. And then this guy over here analyzes the data. And then that guy over here a good example would be like your BI, your business intelligence. He gives you a dashboard to view for a human to now analyze the data, and so on and so forth. So that I'm not sure if that answers the question, because in my mind that's kind of a hybrid system that you're putting together over there. So 100% that's where everyone's moving. Even with it becoming agentic, if you think about it, because that ecosystem now also has the ability for an agent to live there. And the agent can now also understand the differences between the verticals. He can also kind of go on the horizontal from here to there, and then be its own vertical in certain circumstances as well, where he gives you this information that you're looking for, or historical information at a given point, that sort of thing.
That's awesome. So I'm wondering now, this sort of Google Cloud infrastructure and AWS and Azure and stuff have been in development and been around for a few years. It's not like just all of a sudden, Did you notice a difference in the types of projects that came to you that you guys ended up actually building bespoke software since the introduction of this stuff? Because what I'm hearing is I'm kind of hearing that those are off-the-shelf solutions for what appears like a bespoke hybrid approach. It's like they're filling that space, so to speak, but it's an off-the-shelf solution. So I'm imagining that now it's created this extra tier between off-the-shelf and EpicDev bespoke. We built this service from the ground up. There's now these layers in between. There's this cloud services and now agentic services. And are you seeing a difference in clients and jobs that you're actually taking, or has your work stayed more or less the same?
No, there's a big difference, and it's a good thing, because previously, way back in the day, I got to think quite far back, like 15, 16 years, we would try and build these systems to basically do everything for the client, act as an electronic way where the data can be inputted, or captured rather, sorry, and then also, for example, give you some graphs and things on a dashboard for your business intelligence. Okay, without necessarily wanting it to be, it does just become this gigantic piece of software that you've got to build. Either that, or you take shortcuts. What we used to have back in the day then when we were working in that kind of environment is you would have these libraries that people would start developing, these little libraries. So if you think about it, it was also already kind of in the making, because you would use like a high charts graphing library that's built on JavaScript or something, and you would bring that into your application. So all the pressure was on you to create this entire thing, even though you would already start sort of piecing it together with these libraries that are out there. Now you don't even think like that. You just, if someone tells you the entire ecosystem that they require for their business to operate, and it includes this type of management of the data and this type of business intelligence, all you're really thinking of is, okay, I've just got to build this one vertical that is going to allow this guy, for example, to input the data in this clever way that they input it, or maybe this vertical is going to mine it from their pastel or something like that. And because you're doing it in this cloud environment, you know that those other tools are already going to be available to you. Then now what happens though is that you got to become quite knowledgeable with all these different tools that are in that cloud environment. So you don't necessarily have to be the expert anymore in developing all these things, but you do have to be somewhat of an expert of how these verticals work in that cloud environment, so that you can bring just that one vertical in, and then you can plug it into everything else to give the guy the entire ecosystem that he's looking for.